This Advent season, our church has been taking on different Christmas traditions. That's the worship series that we have been in. This is the third Sunday of Advent. So 2 Sundays ago, we talked about the theme of expectancy, and particularly looking at the tradition of an Advent calendar and how that tradition came about. And what we learned was that an Advent calendar can continue to have meaning in our lives, because what we can do is it helps us count down the days in expectancy to the coming of Jesus. So how many of you out there have some kind of Advent calendar that you use right now? Raise your hands if you do, some kind. Okay, how many of you have ever had an Advent calendar that you've used? Okay, a lot of you, right? So we engage in that tradition, and it's part of the Christmas season, and it builds expectancy in us. Last week, we took on the tradition of the Christmas tree, and we reflected on how the Christmas tree helps us remember everlasting life, because the branches of the Christmas tree stay green all year long, and that reminds us of everlasting life. We talked about how Martin Luther, the great reformer, added candles to a Christmas tree because they represented Jesus being the light of the world. And we continue to carry that tradition forward. We talked about how traditions are passed on from one generation to the next generation, just like our faith is transferred from one generation to another generation. That's the legacy of our faith, and we reflected on the idea of legacy. Today, the tradition that we are looking at is Christmas carols. And where did we get this idea of Christmas carols? How does it continue to carry meaning for us? And we know that Christmas carols, of course, provide a lot of joy during the Christmas season. They certainly do. How many of you have been Christmas caroling this Christmas? Several of you I know, because we had a church group go. Okay, how many of you have ever Christmas caroled? Okay, oh yeah, a lot of you, right? And that's a way that we experience joy as we go out there in a group and we sing together. It brings joy to those that we're caroling to. That's part of what we do. The Christmas program is another way that we share joy through music. I am wondering if you can think back to a time in your life where you may have been in some kind of Christmas program or Christmas pageant. Can you think of a time? Were you a sheep? Any sheep out there? Any shepherds out there? Angels? Okay, raise your hand if you were an angel. There's always a lot of angels. Okay, did anybody get to play the role of Mary? A few of you. How about Joseph? Right, so we're in these Christmas pageants, and there's music that go along with them, and that is part of our holiday tradition. The music brings joy to us in our lives. We hear this music all around us during the Christmas season. How many of you find yourself humming when you're in the mall Christmas shopping, because the Christmas music's being blared through the speakers, right? You find yourself humming or singing with the music. How many of you find yourself looking for a station in your car that plays Christmas music at this time of year? We go looking for it, right? We want that music because we want that joy to come into our life. That is part of the Christmas season. So where did we get this idea of just having music that's dedicated to a holiday? Where did that actually come from? Well, the origins of this actually are a little interesting. It's an old French word. The word carol is an old French word, and it has roots in joy, definitely joyous or praise music. But originally, it actually didn't have any religious meaning at all. A carol simply was a song that was sung in a group and danced to in a circle. Can you imagine that? Singing and dancing in a circle with a group of people that you love. That's what a carol was. It kind of had a folk feeling to it, not necessarily a religious theme at all to it. Well, sometime in like the 13th or 14th century, Christians, thought, well, we can kind of adapt this whole carol tradition, and they started to put religious themes or religious ideas into the carol, but they wrote them in Latin and only let the clergy people sing them. So that means only Dan and I would get to sing Christmas carols. You guys would not want that. I trust me, that would not be a good thing for your ears. But that's what happened. Well, around the Protestant Reformation, there's a lot of these Christmas traditions that started around the Protestant Reformation. They realized, we need to hand this tradition of the carol back to the people. So they started to write them in the languages of the people at the time. So French and English and German, they'd write these carols in those languages so that people could be part of them again. And they became sung kind of in community again. We don't dance in circles, do we? We don't dance in circles, but we still sing them in community as songs of praise and as songs of joy. I hope that this Christmas, these songs will settle into you and bring you a new sense of God's joy in your life, a new sense of God's purpose in your life, a new way that God can reveal God's self to you. And with that, the band actually is going to play as our children make their way in for the Christmas program, because I can see them out there and they are ready to come in.